Welcome, everyone. Thanks very much for coming today. My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm a senior associate at Hassell here in our Sydney office. I'm co-chair of the Aluminium Working Group with Kira Kinney here from Lendlease. We're really pleased to have so many of you turn up here in person today. So thank you very much for coming, and many, many more online from Australia and abroad. Oops, got it. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. MECLA was founded in April of 2021 to address the issue of embodied carbon in the built environment. MECLA is all about collaboration. Collaboration across the entirety of the supply chain is necessary to find these solutions quickly. Currently, MECLA has over 120 members and counting. Our purpose is to accelerate the decarbonization of the construction sector. By pooling knowledge and expertise from across the supply chain, we can speed up decarbonization in these hard-to-abate industries. MECLA is currently reaching its 2.0 phase and is going national. This means MECLA is looking for contributions from other jurisdictions as well as member organizations. The New South Wales government, as the seed founder of the initiative, will continue to support MECLA, and many companies have already agreed to provide a small one-off contribution to support our work. We would like to acknowledge and thank those partners. Importantly, MECLA does not tolerate any anti-competitive behavior. If you are aware of any conflict of interest, please speak up so that we may adjust accordingly. We would also like to thank Lendlease for graciously hosting this Spotlight event here tonight in their offices here in Sydney. So today, or this evening, we have a fantastic set of speakers lined up for you, representing many different parts of our aluminium ecosystem. I'll introduce them just before the presentations, and at the end, we'll have a panel discussion for some Q&A. However, before we start with our guest speakers tonight, I'd like to give a bit of background on how we got to this point today. My own aluminium journey started just over 12 years ago. I was working for Foster & Partners on Masdar, a visionary, sustainable master plan city for 40,000 people in Abu Dhabi. There were many amazing and interesting things about Masdar, but one that really struck me was the fact that the project became the first to use recycled aluminium in its facade extrusions in the world. Prior to this, recycled aluminium had only ever been used in a sheet or panel form in cladding. Masdar used its own ambition and influence to attract like-minded companies to push their bounds. In this instance, Alcan, now owned by Rio Tinto, teamed up with their remelt partner Emax to develop the particular strength alloy that was required for the facade extrusions. So that was 12 years ago, and I found myself asking, where are we now? And recently in my work with Stockland on 110 Walker Street, I found myself asking engineers and contractors in the industry about the possibility of using recycled or low carbon aluminium in the facades. And to my surprise, I received some very confused looks. Troy. That ultimately led me to MECLA, where over the past year, we have assembled a broad range of companies to form part of this aluminium ecosphere, including architects, engineers, LCA consultants, miners, recyclers, remelters, and financiers. This is all to get a better understanding of the challenges and importantly, the opportunities for a low carbon aluminium future here in Australia. The initial outcomes of this group is two-part. First, our second Spotlight event for aluminium here today. And secondly, I'm pleased to announce the release of a MECLA resource on aluminium for the development and construction industry, which is available now for download from our MECLA website. I'll like to give a bit of a brief overview to this document, which I think will help set the scene for the presenters to come. So globally, Australia is a very large player in the aluminium market. Virgin aluminium is made by extracting bauxite from the earth, then refining this into alumina, which is finally then smelted into aluminium. As you can see, Australia is the world's largest bauxite producer and largest alumina exporter, yet we're only the 6th largest producer of aluminium. And we'll come back to this. So why aluminium? Compared to other primary materials used in construction like concrete and steel, it is by far the most carbon intensive. For each ton of aluminium produced, approximately 14 to 20 tons of carbon dioxide is emitted into our atmosphere. And why is this? There are some challenges around producing low carbon aluminium. The first is it takes an enormous amount of energy to make the aluminium. In Australia, as an example, there are 4 aluminium smelters along our east coast. These 4 smelters consume nearly 10% of the national electricity grid alone. And in Australia, the majority of this energy comes from our coal-fired power stations. Yes, our grid is decarbonizing. How fast remains yet to be seen. However, the recent announcement from the Tomago smelter in New South Wales, our largest smelter in Australia, was greatly welcomed when they announced that they aim to operate fully on renewables by 2029. Another challenge we have is a bit more complicated. As some of you may know, many of the large-scale buildings, and even in fact, some of the medium-scale projects we work on, have their facades procured from overseas, particularly in Southeast Asia and China. Over the past few decades, Australia has lost a significant portion of our manufacturing capacity and capability as a result of our current view that cost outweighs all other metrics. And finally, the last challenge is ourselves as a development and construction industry. Advances and opportunities in concrete and steel, for example, are much more broadly known and understood. But the conversation on aluminium is only just beginning, and we have some way to catch up. Yes, aluminium is infinitely recyclable. This document outlines the opportunities for advancing our low carbon future, and there is huge opportunity. Currently, the linear economy dominates our aluminium value chain here in Australia. We extract more bauxite than anyone in the world, and we export it. We produce more alumina than anyone in the world, and we export it. We do, however, import nearly as much aluminium as we produce. And at the end of this initial use, we again export it. One of the great opportunities is that recycled aluminium requires only 5% of the energy needed to produce virgin aluminium. And yes, certified recycled aluminium alloys are the technical equivalent of their virgin counterparts, exhibiting the same strength properties and finishing characteristics. And despite some of the nasty rumors floating out there, it can be anodized. The other fantastic opportunity is that it's estimated that over 75% of all aluminium ever produced is still in use, waiting for recovery, for recycling and reuse. Again, another very important opportunity as we transition to the circular economy. And finally, the other great opportunity is that this stuff already exists. These are just some of the well-known producers and products available on the market today. The question is, how do we get our hands on it in an Australian construction context? Sending a strong market signal through our global supply chains will certainly help advance this opportunity. And finally, I'd just like to finish up with something, a bit of food for thought. I recently came across a particular South African artist who had a series of artworks called For What It's Worth. His name is Dylan Marsh. He's a photographer primarily, and he was quite struck by the landscapes in South Africa. And for this particular piece, he photographed a lot of disused mines around the landscape. And what he did was he figured out how much of a particular mineral was extracted from that particular mine, and working with the help of a visual artist estimated the volume of material that came out of that mine. So in this particular case, the Phalaborwa mine, 4.1 million tons of copper, represented by the sphere of copper that you see sitting at the end of the bottom of the mine. And that got me thinking about aluminium. We extract bauxite, which looks something like this. It's shoveled onto massive trucks like this, processed in, as you can see, there are big bloody machines like this. I don't know what that is. Put onto mine trains and shipped to port, ready for use. In Australia, we have the world's largest bauxite mine in Weipa, Australia. Apologies if I pronounced it incorrectly. You can just see it highlighted there at the top end. If we start to zoom in, you can start to get a sense of the scale of the operation here at Weipa. Zooming in further again, and then again, concentrating on the box in the middle, you can start to see the vastness of the scale of this open mine. And finally, inside the little box that I've got circled there is one of these large trucks. And that really got me thinking about the importance of all of this. You know, the next time we enjoy one of these, or in fact, together we work on one of these, we really should remember what it's worth.